If there's one thing that I see relocation buyers struggle with over and over again, it's choosing whether to live on the east side or the west side of Portland. Which side of the river is right for you? And it's hard because if you make the wrong choice, you might not figure it out for months or even years sometimes, because the difference of living on the east side and the west side, yes, of course, it's location, but it's also community, it's your commute, it's the vibe, it's how people interact with each other. And so, if you choose the wrong side, you're gonna end up in a place where you might have a really long commute where you didn't need to have one, or you might end up feeling totally out of place, which is absolutely what you don't want when you're moving to a new city. So if you're debating between the east side and the west side of Portland and you're stuck in analysis paralysis, you don't need to be. Call me or text me at 971-443-1770. I'll pause so you can write that down, and I'll help you get clarity on the process. I went through this exact same decision myself when I moved from Seattle to Portland with my young family, and it's tough, so let me help you. In East Portland, you're gonna get a lot of the classical sort of Portland architectural charm. So this means you're gonna see a lot of craftsmen, a lot of Victorian homes, classic four squares, and the like. And with those styles, your typical age on your house is gonna be built between 1900 and even in the 1890s for the Victorians, and 1940. So with that comes a ton of character. It also comes with some interesting decisions sometimes in the remodeling decisions made over decades and decades. And so you're gonna get a lot of character, but you're also potentially gonna have some renovations on your hands. With these styles of homes, we tend to see larger front porches, very large mature trees. As you can see, I'm walking through Laurelhurst right now and there's a lot of big trees behind me, as well as nice sidewalks. The east side is gonna be a lot more walkable and have a lot more space to stretch your legs. The houses on the west side are often newer, so typically 1970s to present. You're often going to find larger houses, more modern layouts with more open space in the layouts. You might find cul-de-sacs here, and typically as compared to the east side, where your homes are typically the early 1900s, you're gonna often find less renovation surprises here simply because the houses are newer. And because they're newer, you're often going to have better insulation, more energy efficient systems. And so, if your holding house size equal with something you find on the east side, typically they're gonna be more efficient and your utility bill might be a little bit lower on the west side. So when we think about architectural styles on the west side, they're often gonna be newer homes, 1970s to present. So traditional, contemporary, a little bit of mid-century modern, depending on where you are, and modern houses as well. In places like Bethany or Cedar Mill, you're gonna have planned communities with attached garages. So what you would typically find in more suburban areas, this is what you're gonna find a little bit further west outside of the city. So in Eastside Portland, it's all about the lifestyle. The Alberta Arts District is all about art galleries, as you might guess by the name, breweries, murals. It's a lot of fun. Hawthorne and Division have excellent restaurants, and they have a lot of good vintage shops. So if that's your thing, you're gonna find vintage furniture, vintage clothes, vintage knickknacks, you name it, that area's got it. And Selwood is great for boutique shopping. If you're looking for river trails and the ability to get close to water really quickly, it's a good spot for you too. The east side has a lot more sidewalks, so it's definitely more walkable than the west side. You don't have to use your car as much. And the east side is generally organized in a grid system. So each neighborhood has its main drag, or a lot of the coffee shops and the breweries and that sort of thing are. And then there's residential areas oriented around that. And so you can walk to your local coffee shop on your local drag. So Hawthorne and Division have a lot of mixed use type of buildings. So as you can see here, let me spin this around. We've got one right here. This is gonna be living up top, and then down below there is a coffee shop at the base of that. Hawthorne and Division are really sort of foodie capitals of Portland. So you're gonna find really famous, that's a lot of construction that way. You're gonna find a lot of really famous restaurants in this area, really good restaurants, affordable options as well. It's got great variety. So if that's your thing, Eastside is gonna really serve you well. So while the east side of Portland is all about the food and the sort of eclectic arty vibes, the west side of Portland is about suburban comfort. So if you go as far west as Beaverton, some areas in downtown Beaverton are walkable, but most of it needs a car to get around. Tigard has some great shopping in it. It's very car friendly. And so you're gonna, again, want to rely on your own modes of transportation versus a bike, versus a bus, versus your own feet. The west side neighborhoods are immersed in nature. So they're heavily wooded, they're hilly, it's beautiful. You really feel like you're escaping the city vibes. And while the east side typically orients in sort of a grid system around a main drag, and then the residential areas sort of spread out from that, the west side is largely residential, and then it has some real pockets where people tend to congregate. So the shopping centers, the parks, things like that tend to be the community aggregators, and then people drive into those spaces, and then once you get into those spaces, it's really walkable. So to make a comparison, if the east side is about culture at your doorstep, the west side would be about nature at your doorstep. You're gonna have, tall trees all around you, moss, really soaking in the greenery of the Pacific Northwest. One of the best things about the west side is Forest Park. So Forest Park is a massive 5,000 acre, heavily wooded urban forest. It's one of the largest urban forests in the United States. And you're gonna have that in your backyard if you live on the west side. So major plus for that. So depending on what you choose, the west side or the east side, it's really gonna impact how your sort of day-to-day vibe feels. Are you gonna step out into nature? Are you gonna step out into your local bar and coffee shop? Do you value the ability to just hop on a city bus and get around? Do you prefer to drive in your car? All of these things matter when you're selecting west side versus east side, so think through them carefully. So with commuting in Portland, one important thing to know is there's a lot of bridges crossing the Willamette River in the middle of the city. So I think there's 12 bridges in total. And the number of bridges that you have to cross in relationship to your commute can really impact how long it's gonna take you. In Portland, it's not so much about the distance between two places, but about the route and the bridge crossings that you have to go through. So on the east side, if you're living on the east side, getting to the west side can be challenging, especially during times of rush hour, right? So you've got to cross a bridge to go to the west side, and that's going to unduly add some time to the process. The bridges can become bottlenecks. So if you're coming from the east side and you're going west, the Hawthorne Bridge, the Ross Bridge, the Burnside Bridge, they can back up and add a lot of time to your commute. Because of this, if you are a tech worker or you work at Nike and you're having to cross all of these bridges, I often hear a lot of frustration from those types of individuals who have to go into the office and make that crossing, that the commute is one of the worst parts of their day, unfortunately. And fun, not so fun fact is that what can look like a 10, 15 minute commute with no traffic, when you add in rush hour and you add in the bridges, that additional sort of pressure on the situation can oftentimes add an additional 20 to 40 minutes just trying to go east to west. For west side commutes, if you're starting on the west side and you work at Nike or you work at Intel, you're starting from a better place in terms of getting to those places because you're eliminating the bridge traffic from the very beginning. So that's an advantage of the west side if that's your place of employment. I-5 and 217, they do get pretty congested. So Portland traffic, despite being a smaller big city, it can be pretty trafficy. I came from Seattle, and arguably during rush hour, sometimes the traffic here is worse. Public transportation on the west side is also more limited than the east side, and so you have less options if you don't have a car. So something to consider, if you're living on the west side, you're probably gonna want a car because it's just not as walkable and it lacks the public transportation of the east side. We do have a light rail system here. It's called the MAX. If you're along a MAX line, it can be a great option for getting around on the west side. But if you're not next to the MAX, it can be limited. So for some tech workers, it's a boost. For some tech workers, it doesn't really add anything to their ability to get around. Fun, not so fun fact about traffic on the west side. The Vista Tunnel off of 26, it can be some of the most congested areas within Oregon highways in the morning rush commute. So if you have to traverse that area, expect it to add some extra time. So when you're thinking about where to move in Portland, the east side versus the west side, you absolutely want to consider where you're working and what the commute looks like. Because if you sign up for a long commute, you might be disappointed pretty quickly. All right, so let's talk about schools. So on the east side of Portland, you're going to be in the Portland Public School District, so PPS. Within PPS, there's really a wide variety of schools that are, well known for their academics. Some are well known for their Spanish or their Japanese or their Vietnamese language immersion. And so you're really going to want to do your research to make sure that you find what is right for you and your family. So I can't steer you one way or another, but I can recommend resources and tell you kind of what I know about the schools. So within the east side, certain pockets are really well known for high-ranking schools. So Alameda is well known for high-ranking schools. Laurelhurst, which is where we're walking through, is another one. Selwood, and there's plenty more. Other schools, again, are going to have other resources like different focus programs, STEM programs, etc., that can also be really valuable if that's what you're looking for in a school. So really do your research. I'm happy to help support. When I moved to Portland, had a lot of the same questions. And so I can walk you through how I thought about it, and maybe that'll impact, your decision or how you're thinking about it. On the west side, the school districts are a big draw. They're highly rated from a number of different sources. And again, I can't steer you any one way. I will encourage you to look at different resources and do your own research. But generally speaking, when you look at the top ranked school districts in the area, the west side schools are always up at the top. So taking Lake Oswego and West Lynn as an example, they are oftentimes ranked in the top 5 for all of Oregon in terms of their graduation rates and test scores. So point number 2 for the West Side schools is the International School of Beaverton, the ISB, is consistently ranked by the U.S. News and World Report as the #1 school in all of Oregon. So again, I highly encourage you to do your research. There are different things that matter to schools besides just test scores, right? And the test scores don't typically tell the whole story. But if you're looking for a starting place, this can be an interesting place to start. I talk to relocation buyers every single week who are struggling with this exact same decision. So reach out and we can discuss your goals and your needs and figure out the best fit for you. Helping relocation buyers is one of my favorite parts of the job. I was a relocation buyer once myself, and so I understand the process and the struggle and the feelings, and so I'm here for you when you need it. So in terms of the vibe on the east side, it is eclectic, it is arty, it is community focused, it is foodie focused. You're gonna find more independent businesses on the east side. On the west side, you're gonna find more of your chains and your sort of big box retailers. The east side really tends to attract creatives, young professionals, and remote workers because they have the ability to access all the things that they want from a walkable perspective without trading in any of the culture of like the city vibe. So the west side is all about sort of a quiet, polished suburban feel. It's really, really family friendly on this side. If you're looking for more space for your kids, larger backyards, larger rooms, that sort of thing. On the east side, you're gonna pay a walkability premium. And what I mean by that is that places that are more walkable, closer to sort of your main thoroughfares, not on them, but enough away from them where you have sort of the quiet residential feel with the convenience of being close to a main thoroughfare, those properties are typically going to have a little bit of a premium attached to them. Additionally, on the east side, the houses are a little bit older, 1900, 1940, and so they have some vintage charm to them, if you will, and people like that. Like if you're moving to the east side and you don't want an old house, it might not be the best fit for you. So the buyers on this side are looking for that vintage charm and are looking for that sort of unique feel. And so the homes that exude that have all that sort of vintage moxie, if you will, they might cost a premium too. So if you're looking to put a price tag on the walkability premium on the east side, sometimes it can be 20 to 30% higher than a similar property on the west side. So just something to consider, but if walkability is important to you, the east side is gonna offer a lot of that, and that's gonna be important in your decision-making process. Okay, so on the east side, you're paying a walkability premium. On the west side, you are going to be paying for a space premium. You're often getting larger houses here. You're often getting larger lots here. It's a little bit more spread out than the east side. And so that's what you're going to pay for. One important thing that we haven't touched on is houseless populations within Portland. They are prominent, and so it's important, if that's important for you to know about before you pick a place to move to, it's important to know how houseless populations are typically distributed within Portland proper. So it's definitely not an equal distribution. In some places, you're gonna see a lot of houseless folks consistently, and in other places, you're rarely, if ever, going to see a houseless person. So it's important to know if that's important to you. So on the east side of Portland, the houseless populations are typically concentrated in industrial zones and there's like visible hotspots around the city. So East Portland over the past couple years has seen an increase in houseless populations due to rising rent costs, rising housing costs, as well as displacement from the city core of Portland to the east side. So on the east side, houseless populations tend to congregate around social services and businesses where there might be an overhang where they might be able to get out of the rain or get out of the bad weather for just a little bit. So we tend to see hot spots, if you will, of houseless populations. Sometimes they're stable and consistent. Sometimes they're moving around and there's not a lot of pattern. But for example, around Laurelhurst Park, it's a beautiful, massive, massive park, but there also tends to be homeless populations that will come through there from time to time. On the west side, it's a very different pattern. So most of the houseless populations are very deeply concentrated in the downtown or old town sort of core areas of downtown Portland. Once you get out into the suburbs, once you get up into the West Hills, you are rarely going to see a houseless person. The reason for the concentration within the downtown core is, again, proximity to social services. That's where a lot of the city of Portland puts a lot of those services, and so understandably, that's where those folks end up. Overall, I would say the further west you go on the west side of Portland, the less you are going to see. On the east side, it's a little bit more, like the west side core pocket is very concentrated, whereas on the east side, it's a little bit more distributed versus like large encampments of folks. You are typically seeing here's a person here, here's a person here, here's a person here, not here's 10 people all together. Okay, so to wrap this up, when I think about who would fit best on each side or who tends to congregate on each side, on the east side, we have walkability lovers, people who care about public transportation, foodies, creatives, remote workers. There's a bazillion bars and great restaurants on the east side, so the service folks are also typically drawn there. And people who care about the charm of their living space over the actual square footage of their living space. The east side is not great if you have a long tech commute to the west side of Portland. It's not gonna be fun long term. The west side is really good for families. If you are a family that wants a lot of space and wants a big backyard and wants access to highly ranked schools, the west side is great if you work for Nike or Intel or tech organizations. A lot of them are on the west side, so you're gonna have a much shorter commute if you live out here. If you like new construction or at least newer homes, the west side is where you're gonna wanna be. It's gonna be a little scary to buy a Craftsman from 1920 and then realize you have knob and tube wiring. So think about these things before you evaluate, east side versus west side. And then if you're relocating from a part of the country where you've grown up in the suburbs, you know the suburbs, you like the suburbs, and you want that feel, the west side is definitely where you want to go. Don't do the east side. There's no suburbs on the east side. Go to the west side. If you're thinking about the west side and you really like going out at night, or you're deep into the food scene or the bar scene, it's probably going to feel a little bit sleepy and quiet and suburban. So west side might not be your jam. Similarly, if you really care about art studios or going out at night to bars or clubs with your friends, the west side is probably not where you want to be. You want to check out the east side. So if I had to sum up the decision between Eastside Portland and Westside Portland, the whole decision, into one word for each side. For the east side, I would say move there if you value community. And for the west side, I would say move there if you value comfort.
So that's it, right? Nothing to consider whatsoever at all. It's a big decision, East Side versus West Side of Portland. And making the right decision is important because it's really going to affect how Portland feels to you as you live in it and relocate to it. So I, again, work with relocation buyers all the time. I was a relocation buyer myself, and I would love to help you. So give me a call, give me a text, 971-443-1770. I'm here anytime for you.